In this video, we are going to look at 5.5 math books for self-taught mathematicians. That's right, if you are trying to learn mathematics on your own, after watching this video, you'll have an idea of what some good math books are. I'm going to show you 5.5 books that you can use. Now, you might be wondering, what is this half book? At the end of the video, I will show you what I mean by this half book. And it's actually a book that anyone can read. I mean, you do need to know some mathematics, but most people can buy this book and read it and actually see how math is used in the real world. In any case, let's get started right away. We are going to go in order from the easiest book to the most advanced book. So this is the easiest book in today's video. It is a basic calculus book. So we're starting with calculus. So I've completely neglected algebra and trig, and that's what's required in order to learn calculus. If I remember, I'll try to leave a link in the description to some algebra books that you can use if you want to get your algebra skills up to par before jumping into this book. In any case, this is a great book. It's called Calculus. It was written by James Stewart. It is the most popular calculus book in the entire world. There is no book that is more popular than this one. James Stewart was a Canadian mathematician. He passed away several years ago, and I'm pretty sure he was a millionaire, and there was something about his house being built in the shape of an integral. You can read all about this famous Canadian mathematician on the internet, James Stewart. In any case, this book is for people who need to take the calculus sequence in college, typically Calc 1, Calc 2, and Calc 3. The prereq for this book would be a course in pre-calculus and a course in trigonometry at the college level. Now, for those of you self-studying, that basically means you need to know some basic trig and some basic algebra. And if you know that, you can jump in. It's not a perfect book. You're still going to struggle as you try to learn the mathematics that's in this book. But honestly, there's a reason it's so popular. It's because it's really, really good. Let's take a really brief look at the contents of this book so you can see exactly what it contains. Here's a brief look at the contents. By the way, the edition doesn't matter too much. And there's also an early Transcendentals version that just changes the order of things. It's equally good. So it starts with functions and models, limits and rates of change. And then it goes into derivatives, applications of differentiation. So all of this stuff here is Calc 1 stuff, okay? So if you were to take a Calc 1 course in college, this is the stuff that you can actually learn on your own. This is still Calc 1 stuff typically. And then this is typically where Calc 2 starts, depending on your school. But for self-study people, it doesn't really matter, right? There is no course, right? You learn all of it at once. This is Calc 2 stuff, techniques of integration, further applications of integration. It's got some differential equations, which is pretty cool. Parametric equations and polar coordinates. This is definitely Calc 2 stuff here. Infinite series, really fun. That was my favorite in Calc 2. And then here you get into multivariable calculus. This is typically where a Calculus 3 course would start. Starts off really easy, by the way. So like you could just jump into this. You can actually start here. Right? Nothing says you can't pick up this book and start reading it, right? That's the nice thing about self-study. You decide what the prereqs are, right? You make the decisions as to what you want to study. Partial derivatives, multiple integrals, vector calculus, and then we have some differential equations here. This book has answers, by the way, to all of the odd-numbered problems in the back of the book, which is really, really good. You can probably find answers on the internet too, or videos for some of the exercises, because it's such a popular book and it's used all over the world. You can see here you have answers in the back. Very, very nice of Mr. James Stewart to include that for us. Yeah, awesome book. And it has a lot of exercises. So like here's 13.4 on the cross product. This is a Calc 3 topic. So if you go to the exercises, you can see that there are tons of exercises, which is really nice, right? Because you can practice. And when you're doing self-study, what you can do is just do the odd ones and check your answers. That's probably the easiest way. You could do the even ones, but you don't have answers, so it's kind of hard to check your work. I mean, you can do them anyways, but I think it's better just to do the odd ones. Unless there's an even problem you really want to tackle, then go for it. As far as the examples and the layout of the book, it's very, very modern and very professional. Nothing negative to say. I used the early Transcendentals version of this book when I took Calc 1, Calc 2, and Calc 3, and then I bought this one later. just as a collector, because I collect math and science books. But yeah, awesome book. Again, this is the one by James Stewart, and it's a great book. All you need to know is algebra and trig, and you can jump in. By the way, I'll leave links to all of these books in the description of this video. Okay, let's jump to the next book. This next book is one that I've talked about in the past, but I think it's been a long time since I've mentioned it. This is actually a book on proofwriting. It's called A Transition to Advanced Mathematics, and it's by Chartrand, Palamini, and Zhang. And these are the authors of the book. I want to emphasize that because I believe there is another book on Amazon that has the same title and has different authors. So I'll leave a link to this exact one in the description in case you want to check it out. So this is a book that was recommended to me by my friend many years ago. He was a really big fan of Chartrand's books. And yeah, here's the copyright. Let's see when this was. 2003, Pearson Education. Got the preface. And this is a book for writing mathematical proofs. So this is a book that will open the door to more advanced mathematics. It's pretty much a requirement. You can actually start here, by the way. You can skip the calculus and start here because, I mean, sure, it helps to know some calculus, and the more math you know, the better. But this starts with pretty much no prereq. You just have to have a strong desire and some knowledge of math. Because you see, it starts with sets, right? It starts from the very beginning. It teaches you everything you need to know. So the prereqs are low. Logic, again, what's the prereq for logic? Being able to read. That's pretty much it, right? And you can just jump in right here. Direct proof and proof by contrapositive. If you can teach yourself to write proofs with this book, the world is yours. You can learn so much math on your own. It is completely ridiculous. And I think a lot of people don't know that. So it's really important to realize that if you know how to write proofs, you can jump into some of the other math that I'm going to show you later in this video. Equivalence relations, functions, all of this stuff is super key in mathematics. Mathematical induction, cardinalities of sets, proofs in number theory, proofs in calculus. This is really cool. This is not typical in proofwriting books. And then it even has proofs in group theory. And then you have answers and hints to selected odd-numbered exercises. Let's go there first because that's very important. And you can see here he does have answers and hints, or they, because it's several authors, in the back of the book, which is super useful, especially when you're doing proofs. Another thing I really like about this book are the examples. I've worked out several of the examples. Here's a good example of what I mean. Lemma to prove. So we have to prove that the limit as n approaches infinity of n over n plus 1 is 1. And see how it goes through it, the proof strategy. If we're given epsilon greater than 0, we are required to find a positive integer n such that if little n is bigger than big N, then we have that inequality there. And it goes through, and they just go through and they say, okay, we need n to be greater than that. So then you choose n bigger than that, and then you go from there, and then there's your proof. And so it's just a really nice way to write the proof, right? It does a really good job. Does a really good job. Yeah, and that's throughout, right? That's just one example. I just opened the book and that we found that one, but it's a reoccurring theme in this book, okay? I want to emphasize that. It's not just like, oh, that happens to be a good example. No, pretty much all the examples are pretty solid. I've worked out a lot of the exercises from this book, and I've worked out a lot of the examples. I haven't read the whole book, but I feel like I've spent a considerable amount of time with this one, and it's a great book. I don't know how much this book cost. Typically, these proofwriting books aren't super cheap, but in my opinion, they're worth every penny. You should get as many proofwriting books as you can because proofwriting is hard, okay? If I'm being honest, this is going to take you a lot of work to actually learn. But if you can learn this, stuff, you can get a math degree, right? Because if you can write proofs, then you can take the more advanced courses and learn more advanced mathematics like I'm about to show you right now. Here we have another calculus book, and you might be wondering, why are we looking at calculus again if we already looked at a calculus book? Well, it's because this book is different, okay? I bought this book when I was a student after I took Calc 3, and I still had a hard time reading this book, okay? I struggled so much. I struggled incredibly. And I thought, wow, how can this be? Everyone says this is like the best book in the world. How am I not able to understand this book? And the truth is I understood some of it, but I got hung up on all the proofs. So if you know proof writing, it will help you tremendously in using this book for self-study. This book is beautifully written, Okay, it's called Calculus by the legendary Michael Spivak, and it's pretty much a cult classic in the world of math books. And it doesn't cover everything. As you can see here, it covers different things here, part 1, part 2, and part 3. And then here we have part 4 and part 5. So it covers just some calculus, some series stuff. So we've got some series, some complex numbers, derivatives and integrals, limits. It covers the main things in calculus. It's got these fun little quotes at the beginning. To be conscious that you are ignorant is a great step to knowledge. Absolutely. Yep. And then I've read big portions of this book. I remember reading all of chapter 1 when I was a student and going through and trying to go through these little proofs and understand just these little basic things. And I had such a hard time with these little basic proofs and little basic logical arguments. And they're not hard, but you have to understand how mathematics works and the structure of proof writing. So yeah, I think that is something that can help you greatly. Or maybe you already own this book. There's a good chance if you're watching this video, you might even own Spivak's Calculus. I feel like it's one of the more popular books and many people own it simply because it's such a legendary book. If you already own it and you're having a hard time, I think proof writing can help you greatly. The exercises in this book are notoriously difficult. There is a solutions manual you can buy. I have it. I actually own the solutions manual, and I'll try to leave a link in the description to that as well. I definitely recommend getting the solutions manual. Spivak provides answers in the back of this book for a lot of the exercises, as you can see, and he does a really good job. And he does an equally good job in his solutions manual. I feel like he kind of provides the rest of the exercises, it seems, in the solutions manuals. So there is a new edition of this book out as well. I think this is the 3rd edition. I think there's a 4th, so I'll leave a link to that one. But you can see here, Michael goes through everything really carefully. Theorem 1. If f is a constant function, f of x equals c, then the derivative is equal to 0 for all numbers a. Here's the proof. Just applying the definition of the derivative, you get c minus c in the numerator, which is just 0. Boom, done. Yeah, so pretty easy proof. And stuff like that, you know, I didn't understand really. I had a hard time understanding that as a student, but it's very, very clean, very, you know, easy to read in some sense. And he gives explanations that you won't see in other books. Like the way this book explains the concepts is very different from the way that things are explained in this book. So it's at a different level. And this book, again, has legendary exercises. Some of them are super hard. The ones that have a star are really, really tough. So if you're looking for challenging problems, look no further. Actually, out of all the calculus books I have, like out of all the standard ones, this one has the most interesting problems. So that alone right there makes this book very, very special, and probably why it's one of the reasons why it's a cult classic. All right, let's keep going and let's go to something more advanced. Next up is Advanced Engineering Mathematics. So this basically is a survey of math. This book is going to give you insight into all areas of math. And again, in theory, you could try to start here, but you're going to get hung up. This book contains a lot of mathematics that you may have never seen. And don't let the name fool you, right? Say, oh, I'm not going into engineering. It doesn't matter, right? This is a math book. This is a solid math book. Erwin Kreisig. This is a wonderful book. I'm sorry, I have to smell it here. I just have to give it a whiff. Oh, smells amazing. Here's the copyrights on this one. 62 and 67. Yeah, beautiful. I love this book. This is one of my favorite books, and I thought I need to pick a really good books for this video, right? Because I want to give you books that are awesome. And this is one that I think is absolutely incredible. The worst thing about this book, let me just tell you before we look at the contents, is the price, okay? Because this book is not super cheap. I actually have the international edition of this book, and then I have a hardcover as well. It's not cheap, but it's worth every penny, let me tell you. So it starts with a review, and it's a very, very eloquent review. I've gone through most of this, and I've done a lot of the exercises, actually. And then it teaches you differential equations, right? So in order to learn this stuff, you want to know calculus. So basically, calculus is definitely a prereq. And then proof writing obviously will help you greatly. More differential equations. I mean, it's a complete course here in differential equations. All this is DE stuff. Wow, I can smell the book from where I am. For vector analysis, so now you've got some Calc 3. Pretty cool, right? More Calc 3 stuff. So you've got DE, Calc 3, linear algebra, right? Matrices and determinants. So you've got some linear algebra in here. Fourier series and integrals. PDEs, those are partial differential equations, right? PDEs. So you've got PDEs in this book. So you've got differential equations. You've got Calc 3. You've got Fourier series. You've got PDEs. You have complex analysis, right? Complex variables, complex analytic functions. You learn this in a complex variables course. Some more complex variable stuff. More calculus, some infinite series. More calculus. More complex variable stuff. All this is complex, but special functions. Then you've got probability and statistics. Wow, right? And then this is a really good thing. Answers to odd numbered problems, page 845. Let's go there. So page 845, you can see you have some answers. I wish there was more. And I say that mainly because I've worked out, problems from this book. I've sat down with, a pencil and a piece of paper and I've done the math, right? And it really helps to have answers. It really does. Just even if the problems are easy, it just gives you some reassurance. Did I do the calculations right? It's not about like, oh, I'm dumb, I need the answers. No, it's about just being able to check your work. I think that's helpful. But there's reasons the authors don't have answers to problems, especially in the older books. So yeah. If you're curious, one of the reasons is before the internet, if you're a teacher, how are you going to get problems to put on your test, right? You can make them up or you can just take them from the book. It's much easier to take them from the book, right? As a teacher, you already have to, prepare your notes, grade the homework. Coming up with hard homework questions on your own or like interesting homework questions for your students that are not too hard or not too easy is very time consuming. It's a good exercise, but it's time consuming. So having a source like this, a book with exercises that you can assign as homework and also use for your test, makes it a good book for teachers and for students too, because you have some answers. But yeah, amazing book. I got to give it another whiff. Just the layout of this book, by the way, is very clean. What's that? That's weird. Someone put something there. I'm just going to leave it. I feel like it's part of the book. Variation of parameters. So this is a technique for solving differential equations. And this is useful when the right-hand side. So you can use something called undetermined coefficients whenever the right-hand side is like a polynomial or sine or cosine or e to the x or any linear combo of those. And if it's not that, if it's not e to the x or sine or cosine or a polynomial, like if it's ln x in the DE on the right-hand side, you could use this method here. So it's a method you learn in differential equations. Very short section, right? He doesn't spend a lot of time on it. Yeah, pretty good book. I like it. Definitely the hardest book in this video, Advanced Calculus by R. Creighton Buck. And I have a gazillion advanced calculus books, but I think that this might be my favorite one. It is certainly not the easiest one I have. So this book takes a very, I want to call it a high-level treatment to advanced calculus. It starts by looking at everything in n dimensions. It starts with like some topological preliminaries and stuff like that. And then it goes on from there. You can see these here. I've done these exercises. I bought this book new, so everything you see circled, I've actually done. I used this book for a course, so I actually had homework problems that I did from this book that I actually turned in for a grade, and they were graded, so yeah. And so I read a big portion of this book. I sat there in the library and struggled with it, I have a lot of memories with this book. So here's the copyright. It's a pretty old book. And here are the contents. Let's take a look at the contents. Starts with sets and functions. You see it has these topological preliminaries, continuity, differentiation, really basic stuff, but it's hard. Okay, this is much harder than any of the books that I've shown you. Okay, and it has a lot of content too. Look at this, differentiations of transformations. This is where it gets a little bit more interesting. And then you've got some vector calculus and numerical methods and appendices. You do have hints and answers to some of the exercises in the back of the book, which is very helpful. Unfortunately, you don't have more, right? I think there is a solutions manual to this book, but it's really, really rare and out of print. It's like an instructor solutions manual. So yeah, it's kind of super hard to find. The exercises in this book are varied. Let's just go look at some of the exercises here. So let's see here, differentiation. You can see here's some different exercises. It's funny, for some reason, these aren't circled. I mean, I'm sure I did some of these, but maybe I decided to stop circling them. But you can see it starts off pretty easy. It says if f prime of x equals 0. Oh, I did do these. There's a little dash there. For all x, show that f is constant there. So that's a pretty easy proof. And then it goes through and it gets a little bit harder. So it's proof-based. It's advanced calculus. This is like typically the hardest course for most math majors. I mean, obviously things depend on the teacher, but if you can pass advanced calculus, which is also known as real analysis, you'll get your math degree. I mean, this is the real deal here. I like this book because of the presentation. I feel it's like a higher level presentation. If you compare it to other analysis books, like the one by Fitzpatrick, I feel like that one, the way it's written, it's just written differently. I feel like it has more details, which is fine, but I almost think it overdoes it, but you kind of need to at that point because you're just learning. So it's different. It's a different approach. I like it. I think it's great. Is it good for beginners? Yes and no. I say it's worth owning. So I would say get as many analysis books, aka advanced calculus books, as you can because it's a hard subject. But I chose this one for the video because it's awesome. So yeah, there it is. Advanced Calculus by R. Creighton Buck. So there we have 5.5 math books that you can use to learn mathematics on your own. This is perfect for anyone who wants to teach themselves math. It's not easy, but you can do it. But wait, where's the half book? Let me show you. It's right here. It's this one here. So I'm calling this a half book, which is terrible because it isn't full book and it's a great book, but it's not a math book, okay? It's not a textbook. So all these books I showed you here are actually textbooks, right? These are books that you would use if you went to a university and took an actual university level course, right? Like you were in class, you had a college professor, you would use these books in a classroom setting. This is a book you can buy and just start reading. Anyone can buy this book and start reading. Now, it helps to know some calculus, obviously, but this book will actually kind of teach you calculus. It's called Everyday Calculus, and it was written by Oscar E. Fernandez. And I bought this book. I don't know where I got it, but I remember buying it. And then what happened was I Googled this guy, Oscar E. Fernandez, the author of the book, and then I interviewed him, and I made a video here for the channel. So I was very fortunate to interview this man. I think he's brilliant. This book is well written. I'm getting goosebumps. That's like honestly the best thing about the book. Oh, there he is. There he is. There's Oscar. All right. There he is. There is the legend. So the book is very well written. That's what I like the best about it. Like, it's a pleasure to read. You can sit down in bed, like if you want to wind down, before you go to sleep, and you can read about the calculus of the sweet tooth, Let's look at the content so you can see what it contains. He basically goes through and talks about like how he sees calculus throughout his day. So look, wake up and smell the functions. So like, you wake up, you have breakfast, he's talking about functions, and then breakfast at Newton's, driven by derivatives, connected by calculus, take a derivative and you'll feel better, adding things up the calculus way, derivatives and integrals, the dream team. And so he kind of goes through and just like, it's Friday morning, the alarm clock next to me reads 6:55 a.m. In 5 minutes, it'll wake me up, and I'll wake refreshed after sleeping roughly 7.5 hours. Echoing the followers of the ancient mathematician Pythagoras, whose dictum was all is number, I deliberately chose to sleep for 7.5 hours. But truth be told, I didn't have much of a choice. It turns out that a handful of numbers, including 7.5, rule over our lives every day. Allow me to explain. And he goes through. It's just really cool. And say, oh, maybe your curiosity is piqued. I hope it is, right? That is the point that he's trying to make in this book, right? It's a wonderful book. Very well written. He's still in the morning here. Let's see if he goes to the afternoon. Let's go a little further. Go to a different chapter so you can see how he progresses. So, adding things up. Here we go. I'm right on time, and Zoraida and I are seated by the window, looking through the menu. So see, he's going out, right, with his wife. So it's great. He goes through and just kind of like explains how calculus arises throughout his day. It's fun. I've read over half the book, probably. Yeah, I've read a good portion of the book. So I had read a little bit of it, and then when I was going to interview him, I read a little bit more, and I thought it was really good. So yeah. So it's a half book. It's really a full book, but I wanted to call it a half book because it's not a textbook. I'll leave a link in the description. I definitely recommend this one. It's really fun reading. All right, so there you have it, 5.5 math books. Hopefully this has been helpful. By the way, if you found any value in this content, feel free to hit subscribe if you want to. Also, I have math courses. They're on the Udemy platform, which is a reputable place to have courses. But if you get them, please use the links from either the description of my video or my website, mathsorcerer.com or freemathvids.com. Just click on any of the links there and you should get a low price for my Udemy courses. I've got courses on advanced calculus, calculus 1, 2, and 3. I have some courses with some proof writing, some trig, some college algebra, and other things as well. So you can learn a lot of math with those courses together with these books. Learning from books is great, but it always helps to have more help. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. All of these books are awesome. Until next time, keep doing mathematics.